we are going to discuss intuition, which ties in very nicely to the video that we released on Sunday, in which we were discussing, and I was giving some examples of encouraging the feeling, tuning into the feeling. Now, we're going to look at it from the perspective of intuition. And today, as I was reflecting upon what to discuss or how to go about presenting this information, I was reminded of a quote from Think and Grow Rich. He has a chapter in there called The Sixth Sense. And here's the quote. He says, the 13th principle is known as the sixth sense, through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The sixth sense is that portion of the subconscious mind which has been referred to as the creative imagination. So he brought up creative imagination, and he makes a distinction. He says there's creative imagination, and then we have synthetic imagination. Synthetic imagination is essentially looking at this five sensory experience and connecting it together to produce something, which can be very helpful. Now, what he's referring to is something beyond that, creative imagination. Visions, hunches, inspirations, ideas received within seem to bring forth some kind of innovative idea which doesn't appear to exist. In other words, you're receiving from within. And to tie that in, he says, it has also been referred to as the receiving set through which ideas, plans, and thoughts flash into the mind. The flashes are sometimes referred to as hunches or inspiration. Now, we can refer to this as non-linear ways or unknown ways to bringing forth a vision. Now, this is very powerful in the entrepreneurial journey or a journey of creative expression, arts, even in sciences. Many ideas for innovation seem to show up unexpectedly, and the individual receives this idea within. And maybe they go and try to talk about this idea, only to be met with discussion about how this idea won't be brought forth into reality or cannot possibly exist. And upon working with this information, we realize that those are our own doubts, insecurities, indecision, and other elements in relation to thought processes, in relation to that idea that is playing out as theater in conversation with others. In other words, if we are faithful to that idea, then intuition guides us on what to say, what to discuss, what to do, what not to do. And that's why we want to tune into this feeling of intuition, which he refers to as the sixth sense. So by tying into intuition, when we get an idea, we also receive within the plans and the ways to bring forth that idea. What we want to do is maintain this connection to intuition within ourselves. And yes, we could discuss and share our ideas with people, but it's important to remember that if you hear any kind of doubts or criticism in conversation about your idea, that those are expressions of perhaps our own doubts and insecurities within. And what we want to do is look beyond that by encouraging the idea, remaining true to the idea, remaining persistent to the idea. This is a lot more easily accomplished when we encourage intuition. So we're going to tie this into the 7 ways that I've put together that I'd like to share with you that has been very helpful for me. But before we do that, I want to share a story. So when I started my IT business back in the days, 2009, I had a hunch and an inspiration that showed up. You know, when we commit to a vision, what we want to recognize is that intuition guides us within, from within, to what to do and not do. All we want to do is be really present to the feelings that guide us within. So I received a hunch to connect with someone on Facebook. He was running a entrepreneur meetup group in Toronto. I reached out to him and asked him if he wanted to meet up for coffee, because I just started an IT business and looks like he was building websites. So I thought we could probably work a deal where we would refer business together, and it would be cool to just meet with other entrepreneurs. So we met up and we worked a deal. Within, I think it was a few weeks or a month later, he referred me to a company who brought us in to do IT services for that company. They gave us so much work, or they gave me so much work, it was just me at the time, that I had to hire my first contractor to help out. Then the accountant at that particular firm, who saw us providing the services and was really happy of how we were going about doing things and the service that we were offering and the style, the quality of service, she commented about that and said, would you be interested in, I have a small accounting office. Would you be interested in working with us and helping us with our IT stuff? And I said yes. So we went in, and then she ends up connecting us with so much different business opportunities as far as IT services goes, because she knows a lot of people. Her accounting firm does accounting for all these different businesses. She opened up all these connections. And one thing led to the next, and next thing you know, the business started to grow rapidly. So much so to the point where I actually had to say to her at some point, can you please not refer anyone to us, because, and I didn't want to grow it that accelerated. I wanted to make sure it was going at a pace that was allowing me to put in the infrastructure and so forth. Now, this very much ties into intuition, because we see on the journey to bringing forth our vision, whatever it is, and in this regard, I'm speaking of the entrepreneurial journey, that if a person really tunes into, really remains present to the feeling of intuition, they will receive, and these hunches and inspirations are there. We receive them within. And they can be non-linear ideas or things that might not make any sense. Although we call that referral marketing or referral business, the process I just outlined, how I acquired the clients in that regard. It's also important to realize that these ideas to who to reach out to are also found within, and we want to honor these ideas. So he says, this much the author does know, that there is a power, a first cause, or an intelligence which permeates every atom of matter and embraces every unit of energy perceptible to man, that this infinite intelligence converts acorns into oak trees, causes water to flow downhill in response to the law of gravity, follows night with day and winter with summer, each maintaining its proper place and relationship to the other. Now, when I reflected upon this after working with this information over the years, I realized that with every desire, there's a vision. And with every vision, there's a complete package of ways of how that vision is going to be brought forth. And that is all the work of, primarily, the subconscious mind. Essentially, what we want to do is we want to allow ourselves to receive the hunches and inspirations within by releasing from overthinking patterns or excessive thinking, usually related to fears, doubts, indecision. And there are 7 ways that I found work really well for me as I've been working with this information. And what I really want to do more so today, and I really encourage this in you, if you're looking for answers, or you find yourself overthinking or doubting if you're going to bring forth your vision, then we want to return back to some simple things that we could do that allows us to reestablish that connection, which, by the way, it's always there. The reestablishing the connection is really referring to releasing from certain thought processes that seems to create a disconnect between this physical being and our spiritual self. And as he says here, understanding the sixth sense comes only by meditation through mind development from within. So developing this ability of intuition is a matter of releasing certain kinds of thinking that we associate with, that creates some kind of disconnect within us, that is an imaginary disconnect, really, which, for whatever the reason may be, we have these thought processes. Usually we've accumulated certain limiting or disempowering thought processes, and we believe them to be true about ourselves and how reality works. We want to release from that kind of thinking so we can bring forth the inherent intuitive ability to guide ourselves from within to realizing the vision via hunches and inspirations. So he says it, the sixth sense probably is the medium of contact between the finite mind of man and infinite intelligence, and for this reason, it is a mixture of both the mental and the spiritual. It is believed to be the point at which the mind of man contacts the universal mind. Now, to further discuss this, and we want to reflect upon these quotes before we get into the 7 ways that I've put together so we can really add some context to what we're doing here. Let's bring up a quote from the Kybalion here, in which it states, the ancient Hermeticists used the word meditation in describing the process of the mental creation of the universe in the mind of the all. The word contemplation also being frequently employed. But the idea intended seems to be that of the employment of the divine attention. Attention is a word derived from the Latin root meaning to reach out, to stretch out. And so the act of attention is really a mental reaching out extension of mental energy so that the underlying idea is readily understood when we examine into the real meaning of attention. So you've probably heard me say this before. I believe that we all have an excellent degree of maintaining our attention on something. Generally speaking, and I'll speak about myself primarily, when I'm interested in something, my attention automatically goes onto that thing, whatever it is. The task I'm doing, the project, whatever it is. And when my attention is, and reflect on your experience as well, on whatever it is you're doing, something that you desire to put your attention on, you'll notice that you will receive hunches and inspirations within on how to go about doing that thing. For example, when I put together these videos, I like to take some notes and put them into a mind map. But then, as a result of reflecting upon these notes, I receive hunches and inspirations from within to share certain information and even stories. I allow it to flow through me. This expression through you is something that we all have, this ability to express through us. And it is something that we can practice. We can real-time be aware of this and practice in the moment, such as right now as I'm having this conversation with you, I'm aware of it. But what we can also do is encourage it more so with these 7 ways that I have discovered or have found on my journey that have been very helpful to me. So going back to the beginning of this conversation, what we're looking to do is we want to allow the expression, the authentic expression, to flow through us based on how we feel. We essentially want to tune into the intuitive feeling and allow the words to be generated from that intuitive feeling. So really reflect upon this. We want the feeling of intuition, or we could call it sixth sense, to flow through us. We are one with it. And we want to allow the feeling to stimulate the words. Now, this is something that is not just in communication or public speaking where we could do this. We could do this in any form of creative expression or musical expression, artistic expression. Just about any area of our life, we can benefit from allowing that feeling to guide the words. It's like the words really carry the feeling, and the feeling stimulates those words to be expressed. The same is to be said about if you're an athlete. We call this being in the zone, because it is when we're in this state of mind where we find we never run out of inspiration. We never run out of ideas. And we can encourage it by doing these 7 things here. So number 1, prayer and meditation. Those that pray, and there's many different forms of prayer. I've done a discussion on prayer, mystical prayer. I'll put a link in the description to that. And meditation. When we engage in these kinds of activities, what we find is that during the day, we receive hunches, inspiration. Creative imagination seems to be there more so. Thus, it's important to practice meditation, prayer on a daily basis, one or the other. And it really depends on what works for you. So this is where, just as I am describing intuition, this is a certain style of describing intuition. Napoleon Hill discusses it a certain way. As we go through the discussions from all these authors that we've been looking into, such as the work from Charles Haanel, he describes it a certain way, and I'm describing it a certain way. And what we're finding is that it all points to the same thing, that we have this connection within, and this connection is to the universal mind. And we can allow ourselves to maintain this connection. And as we maintain this connection, we receive hunches and inspirations and ideas, and also when we're doing our work or whatever it is we're doing, we're allowing that intelligence to express through us. Now, as you do this, you'll find abilities that are inherent within you that you might never have thought existed within you, or perhaps you had a hunch. This is where we see people perform at levels, be it athletes, performers, entrepreneurs, in ways that they even didn't know it was possible to perform in. These things like prayer and meditation, although these are practices we could say we do outside of the actual task at hand or the project at hand or the creative expression, by doing these things every day, what we find is that it's easier for us to express this way, in the way I'm referring to. Number 2, honor the intuitive feelings. So this is about building a relationship with your subconscious mind. When you receive the intuitive nudges, inspiration, ideas, it's important to act upon them. Follow them, see them to completion, and prioritize them, because then what I found as I do this is that I automatically do it, number 1, and number 2, it's easy for me to distinguish between an intuitive feeling and something that I would call reactivity or mental chatter. This is how we build a relationship, through practice. Number 3, it's important to also keep a journal. Now, it could be a very simple journal, or there are many journals out there that have certain kinds of styles of journaling. But fundamentally, what I like to do is just note certain kinds of moments where I have inspirations or ideas show up, and I just write down what I'm doing at that time. That way I can remind myself that perhaps those things that I was doing at the time are important aspects that I want to know about myself, my thought process, or certain activities that actually stimulate this intuitive ability, ideas and hunches. Sometimes I find that certain environments are a lot more beneficial for me to be in because they allow me to communicate more effectively. Like, for example, I'm very selective on the kind of view that I have where I place my desk in an office. So looking outside, I want to make sure I have a view in which I feel a certain way. When I have that view, I notice that I seem to get ideas that are more in alignment with what he's referring to, the creative imagination. Thus, and even right now, as I'm recording this video, I'm looking at a view, and it's a nice view, and it's an inspiring view. As I'm looking out into the horizon via this view, the ideas of what to communicate and how to communicate are showing up within myself, and I'm receiving information and I'm sharing it. So that's the feeling we want to tune into. Now, journaling these kinds of experiences further emphasizes and encourages having more of those experiences, or knowing yourself to a higher degree, so you know what's the best environments or the different kinds of aspects of reality that contribute to this ability to allow the intuition to flow through you, the sixth sense. Number 4, doing things differently or do different things. Now, this means changing up a routine, switching things around. For me, I like to travel a lot. I like to go to places I've never been before, and I like to switch things up regularly. Although I'm a fan of routine, I also find that having a nice ratio allows this intuition to flow. So, for example, what I've heard some people do is rather than taking the same route over to, let's say, work or wherever it is they're driving to, they like to switch it around. Maybe they'll take one route to the destination, and the next few days they'll take another route, and they'll switch it up. Another thing a person does is, for example, entrepreneurs, they like to work out of different environments. So they might decide that they're going to work at a client site or a coffee shop or a co-working space, or switch up their office, maybe in a different office. And what they notice is that they get hunches, inspirations, creativity, and they also notice if they're doing things like this, where they're putting out information, like videos, that they seem to be able to express and articulate in a way that would be more accurate because they're tapping into this creative imagination by switching things around. Now, it's not to say that a person has to do these things. These are things that I found that has been really beneficial for me. And you want to find your version of these things, and perhaps these things that I'm sharing with you can be helpful for you as well. Number 5 is also related to the video that we discussed on Sunday, surrender to the moment. This really means, you could say, letting go of thought processes and just being really present. It could be as simple as taking a few deep breaths and just releasing from certain kinds of thinking that we would classify as overthinking or negative thinking or just thinking in general. So I don't always do these things, but I do them as needed. There are moments where I do this surrender to the moment, which I discussed in the last video. I'll put a link in the description to that. And what you'll find is that intuition guides you to these things. So intuition could guide you to a meditation, or intuition could guide you to take a note in your journal, or to do something differently. And it's usually after we do these things, which again is honoring the feeling, number 2, that we realize why we were doing the thing. For me, I find that conversations is a big one, although I didn't put it on this list. But conversations, when I have a conversation with someone or when I meet new people, I start to remember why I like to have diverse conversations or meet new people. Because there's a feeling and a thinking pattern that I experience after having those experiences. And it's almost like you have to do things that are different to have certain kinds of thinking patterns after doing those things that seem to be so unique and distinct and personalized and resonant with you. And then you find unique, distinct ways of expressing or innovation. I know I tend to speak a lot about communication because I'm very big on communication, but this could be looked at as any other form of expression. Dance, arts, entrepreneurial innovation, problem solving. Number 6 is connecting with nature. So in the world that we live in, there's a lot of suggestion based on, walking around with a smartphone and reading posts and ads and whatever else. And even when we're communicating with another person, we're sharing our beliefs, interpretations, our perspectives. There's a lot of suggestion. When you go into nature, and this could be going for a walk in the park, going for a walk along the shore on the beach, or perhaps even going up into the mountains or something like that. This is why I like snowboarding. I find that I become so one with my surroundings that I release from a lot of biases. Because nature is, and it can be definitely interpreted from within. But I find that the interpretations from within, when I'm in nature, are more in alignment with creative imagination. I tend to get new ideas, hunches, ways of going about doing things while in nature. Now, all of this is connecting to intuition, feeling. So we say feeling, you receive a feeling within, an intuitive feeling, and we know what it means. And that feeling can be translated into words, communication, could be translated into an artistic expression, could be translated into solving a challenge or a problem that we have in life, or a answer to a question, which is the next point. Number 7, ask inner questions. So for many of us, we're taught that if we want to find the answers, what we want to do is go into a book or ask a person. Although that is one way to find answers, there's also another way. You can ask the question to yourself within. You can ask within, and the subconscious mind, in its infinite ways, will reveal the answer. And what we want to do first is believe this is possible. Trust that it's possible. Assume that it's possible. Just encourage the idea that you can do this. And what you'll notice is that perhaps after a meditation, or while you are in a walk in nature, or when you surrender to the moment, the answer shows up. Many report that they receive the answers while they're taking a shower. This happens with me as well. Because in that moment of taking a shower, many of us are released from overthinking and more in a alpha, theta state of mind in which we receive these hunches and inspirations. So we can say that intuition is a lot more apparent when we're in certain states of mind, alpha, theta states of mind. Now we're going to discuss this further. I believe that intuition is a discussion that really we could have for eternity, because there's so many different interpretations on how a person reveals, works with, and encourages their intuition. And I trust that what I'm sharing in this video has some parallels to your own life experience and further encourages you to tap more into this intuition ability that you have and encourage it more so, because then you find that nonlinear and unknown ways are embraced more so as far as bringing results goes. You find nonlinear ways, and they usually end up being fast, quick ways of bringing forth a success or result, which seems to be very different compared to how other people do it. Or maybe there is some parallels as to how other people do it, but they seem to work really well when combining with intuition. As the example that I gave, the process that I followed to grow my IT business back in the days was really through referral marketing or generating referrals essentially. However, some seem to struggle with growing their business with referrals, and some seem to grow their business with ease with referrals. And I believe the distinction really resides in intuition, because the reality is you can talk to hundreds of people each day, but intuition guides you to the accurate person to do that win-win deal. Because remember, we want to look at this as this is all one mind, individualized as each other. And intuition is really the connectivity of the one mind. So even though we're talking about something that is beyond five senses, and we're even using five sensory explanation to conceptualize this, it's a good idea to encourage this kind of discussion, because we all have this experience. We all know this. And I believe that this is a key to allowing us to deal with large volumes of complexity. So again, to encourage it. So let's bring this into an important distinction. Intuition is a feeling, and it's knowing. It's a knowing kind of feeling. You know that it's going to happen. You know what things mean, knowing. And from that feeling, there could be things to do or things not to do, or ways of expressing that intuitive, depending on what it is, that intuitive feeling. So we want to both honor it and encourage it. So we can encourage it with prayer and meditation, honoring the intuitive feelings, listening to them more often to build that relationship, keeping a journal, doing things differently, mixing things up, or doing the same things differently, surrendering to the moment, release from overthinking or thinking in general, connecting with nature and asking the inner questions. These are the things that I do and continues more so every day to develop this internal relationship. And as a result, what was discussed here in the Kabbalion allows me to automatically keep my attention on what is related and in harmony to my vision, or it seems like I automatically do it, which brings forth this automatic ability to focus and have a high degree of presence and attention to the task or project or the creative expression at hand. And what we find is that we're so deeply engaged with it that the personal self seems to surrender to this infinite intelligence which expresses through us. We end up becoming more like a conduit of the expression. And when we remain in that conduit of expression mode, let's say, our attention is automatic. Distraction doesn't exist. We even start to notice time distortion and other things we talk about at deep stages of flow. I'll put a link in the description to the flow series. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. I would like to further discuss intuition and discuss it from many different perspectives to encourage it, because I really do believe that this is one of the ways that we are going to make accelerated progress to our vision. Because all throughout the years, I noticed within myself when I was following the intuitive nudges, or I was living by intuition, I was making a lot more of a rapid progress. Life seemed more joyous, effortless, flow-based. I started to understand to a deeper degree the meaning of Wu Wei and live by it. And I would like to encourage that and also share that experience with you. So let's go ahead and conclude this with an affirmation. We could say, I recognize that within myself contains the answers to every question that I ask, the ideas, the hunches, the inspirations to bring forth my vision are found within myself through the power of intuition. My ability to recognize my oneness with the mind of all, receiving within anything that I require to bring forth my vision, which presents itself more so every day as I maintain and honor the activities and the ways of thinking that further encourage this infinite connection that I have within myself. I recognize that this is also the key to automatic attention, focus, and being the conduit of infinite intelligence expression onto my creative endeavors from a place of love, peace, and flow. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.